with me this week. Excited from 101.7 The Truth. Also catch him on Sunday Karma right here on 94.5 ESPN. Kyle Wallace. Kyle, thanks for the time, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited about this RePackables this week.
So we go back to 2015 for this one. And this is one of my – I was really excited to talk about this game because I have very fond memories of this game.
Fond memories, huh?
Because of what happened after.
Okay.
Because of the celebration on a Thursday night. And we can get to that part, but I remember a lot of things that happened after I went out with some pals after celebrating this game. Because the first half, not very good. So we're going back to 2015, and we're going back to week number 13. The Packers rarely playing back-to-back Thursday nights. This is the second game at Detroit's. And in 2015, the year had started not great. Jordy Nelson tore his ACL in Pittsburgh in the preseason. But the Packers started off great. They were 6-0 to start the season, hit the bye week, and then the word got out that if you play man-to-man with the inexperience and the lack of talent the Packers had on offense after they played the Broncos, things started to get away from the Packers as teams started to man them up. So they started the season 6-0. They entered this game at 7-4. So they had lost 4 of their next 5 games, including the week before on Thanksgiving night. This was one of the early times when you had your typical Thanksgiving Day games, Fox, CBS, while NBC got in on the action. Packers had a Thanksgiving night game with Brett Favre at Lambeau Field, honoring Brett, showing his name, his retiring his number, that whole thing. Rainy, terrible night. I was at that game. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible in terms of the weather. The game itself was also awful. They lost 17-13. So here we are on a Thursday night. Packers, we don't know what's going on with this team. They still have a decent record, but no longer in first place in the division. And they're taking on a Lions team that had just beaten them 2 weeks before, and the offense had really been struggling. What do you remember about 2015 heading into this game?
I really had my memory refreshed watching this game because, so many years they go back and they kind of all get caught in together. But as I kind of looked at this roster and looked at this game, I'm like, wait a minute. Jordy didn't play. That's right. That's the year he tore his ACL. And then when it hit me, like, oh, the Hail Mary game. I'm like, you really only kind of remember the end result sometimes.
Yeah.
And,
it was so
general
ugly.
the season. But then that game, when watching it back, though, a lot of things clicked back about this overall team and this overall roster that just had my mind spinning, which kind of takes me into today when we think about what's going to happen this year as Jordan Love becomes the starter for the Packers.
And you have an experience at wide receiver. So this was Devontae Adams' second year, and he had a really bad second year. He started the year with an ankle injury, just kind of never overcame it, never got past it. And you still had Randall Cobb on the team.
Yep.
You have Jeff Janis. James Jones is back. But at this point, James Jones saved them so much early in the season. I don't think – I've got the box score right here. I don't think he caught a ball the entire game.
I do not recall. Jared Abbrederis probably targeted more in that game.
Yeah, so James Jones did have 1 catch for 19 yards in this game. That was it. That was it. Of the 273 yards Aaron Rodgers threw for, 19 of them were to James Jones. They were targeted the same amount of times. 3 targets each, 1 catch each. Abby had a catch in this game as well. And the offense was just really the entire first half was bad. Everything about it was bad.
Gabe, watching this game, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. You think about the running backs. You think Eddie Lacy.
Yeah.
Overweight, ankle injuries, really had some controversy. You think about James Starks. I'm like, James Starks was on that team. And then that game, I remember a guy named John Crockett. I said, oh yeah, John Crockett.
You remember John Crockett? I completely forgot about John Crockett.
When I saw him come in the game, I said, oh yeah, I remember this guy. And so you just had these moments while watching this game thinking, this team, first and foremost, this team never had a chance throughout the year.
No, it was a bad team.
Whatsoever. You look at the tight ends on the roster as well. Richard Rodgers, decent, serviceable.
He was okay, yeah.
But he's not the stud that you want. That guy turned out this game. He was the savior before he made the catch. But, he was doing a lot of great things. But just overall, this offense, the offensive line, I forgot about this, was hurt going in, decimated during the game.
Yep.
It was so many things that came back when I'm thinking about this team literally got shut out, and I believe they had less than 80 yards of offense total in the first half, 16 rushing yards. It was hard to watch, Gabe. I'm like, this is terrible.
And they flashed a stat across the screen. So the other thing about this is CBS game, because everybody took their turns on Thursday Night Football.
Pre-Tony Romo.
So hearing Phil Simms was hearing Simms with Nance was a little different. But they flashed it up right before the end of the half where the Packers had 56 straight games where they had not been shut out in the first half. They ended up getting shut out. They're down 17-0. The defense had not played well in the first half either, giving up chunk plays. Calvin Johnson against Sam Shields and
Gabe, the poor communication on the goal line on first touchdown. It just reminded me. I'm like, the Packers consistently have had poor communication. Ebron was wide open on the goal. That's like, just give me the ball.
What happened was, I think it was 3rd and goal, inside the 5. And the Lions just spread everybody out. There's nobody in the backfield except for Stafford. And you see on the bottom of the screen, so on the defense's left, there's some communication between the two DBs, and they end up flipping. Like the linebacker goes to cover the running back on the outside. But Ebron's tight to the line, and nobody noticed him. And as you said, Stafford's just like, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Right now, give me the ball. I need the ball. And there's nobody around Eric Ebron for an easy touchdown.
There's no excuse for that whatsoever. That's just lack of leadership, lack of communication. But watching it back, it's like, my goodness, how does this happen?
And there are names you recognize on the Packers defense. You got Clay, you got Julius Peppers, Sam Shields. This is before Clinton-Dix completely went to crap.
When I looked at it, actually, Gabe, one of the things that came to my mind was just thinking, man, the Packers really made mistakes on not signing some players. Micah Hyde was on that team.
Yep.
Casey Hayward. You're talking about guys that became all pros once they left the Green Bay Packers. But no, that defense was loaded with a lot of young talent.
Yeah, and at the first half, they did not show up. Yeah, they had Julius Peppers, who would end up making a big play later in the game. But the first half was – so it's a Thursday night, and at the time I was living on the east side here in Milwaukee, and I had a buddy, a college roommate of mine, who also happened to work downtown. He's like, I'm not going to have enough time to run home or whatever, get there in time for the game. So, hey, let's watch the game together. So we watched the first half together. The first half was so bad he left. Like, and this is a guy who's like one of the most diehard Packer fans that I know. And he's like, nah, this thing's over. It's 17-0 at half. The offense had shown no life. And really, the offense hadn't shown much life outside of the Vikings game in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, this thing's over. I don't need to stay up here. I can go back home because at the time he was living in Kenosha. I can go back home. Don't have to worry about the rest of this game because it was 17-0 at half.
And you had already lost to the Lions previously this year, and you're getting boat raced in the first half.
Yep. And then the Lions got the ball to start the second half, and they score a field.
They did,
go down, kick a field goal right away. So by the time Aaron Rodgers touched the ball in the second half, it is 20-0, losing 20-0 to the Detroit Lions. And I remember thinking at the time, because at the time I was doing the show with Homer in the afternoons, and I had just staunchly defended Rodgers and figured that things are going to be okay. Rodgers, we got Rodgers. He's going to figure it out. I remember sitting there thinking at 20-0 going, we're not going to figure this out. They're going to start 6-0 and somehow miss the playoffs. Like, there's just no way. They're down 20-0, and we're already a good chunk into this third quarter.
It's interesting that you say that, because another thing that happened last night when I was rewatching this game, I thought to myself, I have been so spoiled, because like you become disillusioned with the fact that any other team who has just a good quarterback, but not a run of Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, when you're down 20-0, you think, oh, this is over. Me, just being this person that just thinks because I have these great quarterbacks, we always have a chance. I literally thought during that game, I know for a fact, I did not stop watching that game. I watched it entirely.
I watched the entire thing.
I have this hope in my mind that we are always going to come back, because regardless, most of the times the Packers are competitive in most games. You know, when you have Aaron Rodgers, you just believe he's going to spark something. Brett Favre, some miracle's going to happen. And so even during that game, when I know for a fact I was frustrated, I still was hoping, like, all right, it's the Lions. We're the Packers. It's not supposed to happen. We'll be okay. Because we had that long run where they came to Green Bay and they couldn't win. And we beat them a lot of times regardless of where we played at.
Yeah, it didn't matter. Like, I mean, everyone wants to talk about Aaron Rodgers' dominance of the Bears or the Vikings, whatever. I mean, the Lions have always been the redheaded stepchild that just loses to everybody.
The previous year, I believe, is when Aaron Rodgers beat the Lions at the last game of the season on one leg.
Yes, he did.
And so you just believe, like,
first round bye.
Hey, listen, we're gonna make this happen. Like, it's Aaron Rodgers, we got it, and it's the Lions.
Yeah. So the Lions beat up. Yeah, John Crockett is making runs. The Packers are down 20-0, and they're still trying to run the ball because they realize throwing the ball is not having a ton of success. Again, the only receiver who really only had sustained success in the game was Richard Rodgers, who had finished with 8 catches for 146 yards. Career game for Richard Rodgers. But they finally start to put it together offensively.
What happened, though? They put it together offensively, and this is just that luck that we have that all of a sudden, how did they score the first touchdown, Gabe?
Well, so, I mean, at least they did move the ball before that. They moved the ball to get in position. So the first touchdown, and I had forgotten this is how they scored the first touchdown, was they moved the ball down and they, again, trying to establish run, still trying to run it, give it to James Starks. And after Crockett had some nice runs on this series, Starks, okay, we got to give Crockett a breather. Starks comes in, fumbles the football around the 6 or 7 yard line, but it bounces off his arm and his knee forward into the end zone. And here comes Randall Cobb just sprinting out of nowhere to jump on the ball. And that's how the Packers scored their first touchdown.
And all that does is just make us feel, here we go. All right. We got one, right? That's what we needed to do. We're on the board. But that is like the thing as a Packers fan. You're just like, all right, well, here we go. But that offense was so bad. That's what we needed, some type of luck like that. It wasn't like it was just it dropped. He fumbled it on the goal line. He literally fumbled it, like you said, 6 or 7 yards away from the end zone. And Randall happened to run on it and recover it for a touchdown. I mean, just incredible start to what ended up being a great finish.
And I remember being like, I was excited that they scored the touchdown because now all of a sudden it's only a 2-score game. It's 20-7, and you're going, okay, we're back in this. But also there was like the frustration, like you said, the frustration part of your brain with this Packers offense at the time because they had so struggling. Of course, that's the only way we can score. Like we can't score a normal way. We had to score that way. And then it was just a play or two later where the Lions have the ball. The Lions have the football. Right away, they get the turnover. Julius Peppers beats somebody off the edge. Matthew Stafford hits his arm, strip sack. Packers have the ball. And suddenly they're in the red zone again. And you're going, whoa, we are right back in this thing.
You get juiced up again watching it. Just because of the fact, like, I'm watching it again, I get juiced up because I know the end result.
Yeah.
But you get juiced up when you see the plays. Like, all right, this is what happened because I'm telling you during the first half, Gabe, I'm like, man, how did we pull this off? How did we get 27 points? That's how I was questioning that.
At the end of the first half, and the Lions started struggling at the end of the first half as well, like after they had already put up their 17 points. Aaron Rodgers had an interception in the first half that helped the Lions. Like literally everything in the first half that could go wrong went wrong. And it became a punt fest. With under 3 minutes, there were 4 like the Packers and Lions both punted 4 times each. It ended up just being bad football at the end of the first half, which probably led to a lot of the frustrations of my buddy leaving. But suddenly, like you said, okay, offense scores a touchdown. Defense steps up. Julius Peppers makes a play. Of course, they had to wait until third down to punch the ball into the end zone because you're going, oh, man. After the first 2 plays, you're going, oh, God. You get the turnover. We got to punch this thing in. We got to punch it in. Cutting it to 20-10. It doesn't feel great. And this was probably the best play that Rodgers and Devontae made all year in 2015, really? I think, because Devontae ran kind of one of those classic Devontae routes that we got used to at the end of the Devontae Adams era. And just the little shake, beats the linebacker up the field. Rodgers just a little flip of the wrist. Devontae goes up, gets it, comes down with it. His first touchdown of the year.
And what I love about this, again, watching it back is so great because you're kind of just seeing the trust that Rodgers always had. Like he never, regardless of all the jokes that a lot of us hear, and not me because I never called him Butterfingers, the jokes that people had about Adams early on because of all the drops, but Rodgers always stood behind him and trusted him.
You weren't one of those people calling for Jeff Janis over Devontae Adams?
Let me look in this camera. I could not stand Jeff Janis. Just what when he had that catch against the Cardinals, I was excited, but then also I was like, oh, it's Jeff Janis. Now I gotta deal with it.
You gotta hear it.
I felt like if Jeff Janis is a receiver on your team is not quality that needs to be. That's just what I felt. I did not like Jeff Janis whatsoever.
You weren't wrong,
but then he makes like this incredible catch at the end of the game.
Well, yeah, he did that against Arizona, but I think you ultimately ended up.
He was fast.
He was really fast.
He couldn't run all. He could just run straight.
Yeah, he was really fast. He was very fast, and that helped him in that Arizona game. Yeah, I don't think he had 1 target in this game because he was fast in it at the end. I don't know, but they get the touchdown to Devontae, and it's 2014, and you're going, okay, here we go, and then things started to kind of stall out again, where the defense got a stop or two. Packers got the ball back down 2014, early fourth quarter, just couldn't get anything going offensively, and it ultimately had to punt the football away. And then the Lions get it, march down, score. They had a big play, kind of on third down. And third down penalties, like Julius Peppers had an offside penalty, and third down just killed the Packers in this game, but they hold them to a field goal. So it's 23-14. Packers get the ball back with about 5 minutes left. Had to take a gamble because they're down 2 scores with about 5 minutes left. Went for a 4th and 1 on their own 30-ish yard line. So, of course, Aaron Rodgers, who's he going to? He's going to Randall Cobb.
Hey, it was easy money.
Cobb breaks a tackle, gets up the sideline, gets things going for the Packers. And they eventually, once again, punch the ball into the end zone with the longest run of the game, which came from Aaron Rodgers, 17-yard touchdown run for Aaron Rodgers. And you saw some frustration from him come out as he wound up and spiked the football to make it a 23-21 game.
You're back in the game. You're down 20-0. They're down 20-0 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah.
You really feel like this team was maybe down and out. Like you said, your friend, he left. He said, listen, I'm not watching any more of this travesty that's going on. But you're all the way back in the game. Now you're only down 2 points with less than 5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, and the problem is, and I feel like so many Packers games have come down to this, having to trust the defense late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, guess what? The defense didn't really help out the Packers because they had opportunities. Get a stop on first down, timeout. Get a stop on second down, timeout. All right, here we go. 3rd and long. Feeling really good about getting the ball back, getting the ball to Aaron Rodgers, even though they don't have any timeouts left. He'll be, with 2 minutes left, they'll be fine. They'll be great. And it wasn't even bad coverage. It was just a really good throw from Matthew Stafford to a guy who had not had a catch, T.J. Jones, apparently, or is only his 3rd catch all year long. He found T.J. Jones over the middle of the field, who made a diving great catch just past Quentin Rollins' outstretched hand to pick up a first down.
Again, flashbacks always. This just made me remember 3rd downs have just been 3rd and 4th downs late in games have been just something that, as a Packers fan, I don't know. I'm not a sports fan for the Saints or the Cowboys or the Commanders now. So I don't know what their teams go through on 3rd and 4th down. But my entire life, 3rd and 4th down have just been played late in games.
Like the crucial ones, like the crucial 3rd and 4th down.
Yeah, I mean, even regular season last year, you think about the game against the Commanders, I believe they got Terry McLaurin got a really good catch late in the game. And then you go back in the playoffs, the last time the Packers in the playoffs, you think about the 49ers as well, where Deebo Samuel
3rd and 8.
Yeah, you think about 4th and 26. Now, seeing this random 3rd and 12 that they got, it's just like, my goodness, we've been giving up big plays on 3rd down my entire life. Very frustrating.
So the Packers don't have any timeouts. The Lions did have to run a play on luckily, there was enough time before the 2-minute warning. Otherwise, this game would have been over. If they could have run it down to the 2-minute warning, they could have taken 3 knees and run it out. But they had to run one play on, the plus side of the 2-minute warning. And they just run 3 run plays. Packers stuff them to force a punt. But they don't get the ball back. They only have 30 seconds left. They're down 2 points around the 20-yard line. Get the ball back. And first couple of plays, Rodgers is trying to make something happen. Ball gets knocked away on the sideline, trying to make stuff happen, trying to push the ball up the field. And next thing you know, there's only 6 seconds left.
Basically 6 seconds left. You got to go almost 70 yards downfield, or 70 yards plus actually downfield at that time. You don't know what's going to happen because, Rodgers probably could have tried to launch at 70 yards, but probably would have come up a little bit short. So it went the trickery route.
Yeah, which it never works.
Never
works. Like I can't remember the last time I saw lateral and lateral. Like usually it ends the way it did for the Patriots this year when Jones from the Raiders grabbed it and then just stiff armed Mac Jones on his way to the end zone as the Raiders ended up winning that game against the Patriots. So, get the ball downfield to Richard Rodgers, lateral it back, throw it back to Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers gets tackled, game's over, except he didn't really get face masked.
Oh, he got hit on the face, but it was contact to the face mask. It might not have been a personal foul, but he definitely had contact.
It may have gotten lucky.
His helmet.
However,
I don't know how his helmet ended up.
I don't know how his helmet. I don't know how his helmet.
Got like
his
that.
Chin strap is up by his nose. Oh. It wasn't. It looked like a face mask from the TV angle. I remember getting up and going, "It's a face mask," and the flag came flying in right away. The official called it. Lions fans are going to call it conspiracy because it probably wasn't grabbed. But it makes up for the Arizona playoff game, Aaron Rodgers' first playoff game when he got sacked and got grabbed with a face mask, and that one didn't get called. Yeah. And that one didn't get called, so it all works out in the end.
So you don't think you got face mask? He didn't graze the face mask.
He grazed it, but that's not a penalty anymore. You got to grab and turn it. That's what the penalty is now.
Well, the rest made the decision.
Yeah, no, hey, look, I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying may have gotten a little lucky with it. And so now you're still in the same spot because at that point, before this throw happened, I thought Aaron Rodgers could get the ball there. But I just assume that unless you're around, the 40 or 50-yard line, you're probably not trying a Hail Mary. You're just going to, you're going to dump it off and try to do the trickeration thing again. But who knows? Maybe something works out. And the Lions decide to rush 3. Aaron Rodgers rolls out, and I go, oh, he's just watching this play. And we've all seen it 1,000 times as Packer fans. We've seen it so many times because it's when you start talking about Aaron Rodgers throws, it's like if we were to put together a top 10 Aaron Rodgers highlights from his time in Green Bay. Like, this is going to be number 1. Mm-hmm. This is number 1. But the thing I remember the most is after he rolls out, he winds up at around the 35-yard line and just launches this thing 65 yards towards the end zone. The thing I remember the most is thinking it was going to be caught before the ball comes into the screen because Richard Rodgers was so, nonchalant. Like, he sees it.
Tracked it so well.
And then he just starts he kind of swivels his hips, kind of backpedals a little bit, high points it, and it's the most miraculous touchdown I've ever seen in my life.
It was perfect, and watching it again reminded you just of the greatness Rodgers had. You said he scrambled one way, and then he took back. He set up everything so perfectly. It was so beautiful. The ball was perfect, and like you said, Richard Rodgers just. The way he positioned himself, it seemed like he knew exactly what to do, where to be. He didn't go too far deep where he had to come back to it. Mm-hmm. He basically got himself and backed up and tracked in there. It was just everything about that was so perfect.
And it was different than any other Hail Mary I remember. Because I remember Homer and I talked about this then the next Friday, where every other Hail Mary, especially with Brett Favre, in order to throw it as far as you want, Brett was trying to throw it as hard as he could. And there was some loft on it because it had to be because it's going farther. But to throw it as high as he did and as far as he did kind of changes the way people throw Hail Marys now, which makes sense. You want to get it to kind of come down at that point so your receiver hasn't a chance to, kind of high point it the way that Richard Rodgers did. And it changed the way, to me, that Hail Marys are kind of thought of and thrown, especially with the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, all these all these quarterbacks who have as strong of arms as Rodgers does. It kind of changed the way Hail Marys operate.
It was just absolutely beautiful to watch and rewatch over and celebrate again. Just seeing it. It just the special talent that Aaron Rodgers has is something that I don't. If we ever find somebody somewhat close to being in the atmosphere or universe of his talent, we are just going to be so lucky as Packer fans because. Granted, right now we're going through a messy divorce. That even though the divorce is over, it's still a little bit messy. That guy, you cannot deny the talent that he had. No. He still has, if you ask me.
No, and this was kind of the beginning of the end, and I know in 2016 they ended up going to another NFC Championship game, but this was, to me, kind of the beginning of the end of the Mike McCarthy era. So I've been fortunate, Kyle, watching back some old Mike McCarthy games through this Repackable series, watching back Cowboys, Packers from 2007 when Rodgers first got the extended time. I did that with Jason and with Vince Vetrano talking about the last game of the 2010 season against the Bears where they had to win in order to get in. All the crazy stuff had already happened. They just had to beat the Bears to get in, and it was an ugly football game, but they won 10-3. And early Mike McCarthy, I think, again, it's easy for Packers fans now to remember the ugliness of the end of the McCarthy era, but early McCarthy, he's just mixing formations. He's mixing personnel. He's going 5 wide. Then he's got 2 tight ends or 2 fullbacks, and he's just constantly changing up his personnel. And you can kind of see the progression of how it got stale. But the same thing I think is happening with Aaron Rodgers, where it's easy to remember the ugliness. It's easy to remember 8 and 9 last year, but being able to go back and rewatch some of these games and see they didn't have anybody. I mean, Devontae Adams wasn't Devontae Adams yet. Randall was kind of beaten up and going through some injuries. James Jones was in his last year of the NFL, and they're trying to put together a team that eventually did go to the playoffs and win a playoff game.
Yeah, they did. I remember.
They beat Washington.
Yeah.
Went into Washington. Right? Kirk Cousins was the quarterback, and that Cardinals team was really good, and they somehow put together a game plan that kept them in it and somehow got to overtime in that game. The famous part about that is they wish. I mean, Aberderis got hurt on the Hail Mary, and if they had enough, they didn't have enough healthy wide receivers. Otherwise, they may have gone for 2 to try to end it right there. Unfortunately, ended up losing in overtime in that game. But this team, it just after they lost, Jordy, they never could quite put it back together despite the 6-0 start. But there were still some pretty special things that happened with this team.
No, there definitely was special moments. I mean, it wasn't like we talked about earlier. It wasn't the last big plays that we had when it comes to Hail Marys as well. But I really think it was, like you said, the beginning and the end of Mike McCarthy. And going back and reviewing this team, hindsight is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I just think about what if when it comes to what if this defense would have kind of stayed together for a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Where we actually had some of this young talent. Like, what would have happened? What if the Packers invested in a stud inside linebacker or a high draft pick, or invested in an inside linebacker versus, I think a 5th round pick in Jake Ryan or something like that? Like, what if we would have invested high with that to have kind of that inside enforcer? We had great pass rushers. Just felt like we never had a commander inside when it came to inside linebacker. Just so many little things where I realized why Rodgers is so upset is because it just seems as we never really went all in when he was in his prime to give him everything he potentially needed in order to be successful. And it just wasn't always there when we needed. It just wasn't perfect timing.
Well, when you talk about the kind of what ifs, like the one I think about a lot is Micah Hyde, because the Packers played him out of position. They played him as a cornerback, and he was fine. He was solid.
He had a sack in that game.
Yeah. Like, and the thing with Micah is he was, and still is, I think, with the Buffalo Bills, he's just a unique piece. But you needed to put him at safety.
Yeah.
And they had Burnett and Ha at that time. But, even when he became a free agent, just having the thinking of, hey, what if we moved him to safety? The way that Buffalo did, because he became he's an all-pro performer with the Buffalo Bills. So then you wouldn't have had to, spend a first-round pick on somebody like Darnell Savage. And maybe that first-round pick becomes one of those offensive weapons that Aaron Rodgers would have wanted to have. And that's the kind of what ifs that I think about, the Casey Haywards.
Yeah.
And the cornerback position has seemed to work out, with the drafting of Jair and whatnot. But, man, it seems like the Packers have been chasing a great safety since Nick Collins got hurt in 2011. Like, safety is the tight end position of the defense, where the Packers have been chasing, and so it's been a little bit less time because they've been chasing somebody ever since Jermichael Finley. And his time was so incredibly short.
It sure was.
So they've been trying to find somebody since then. Where at safety, they've been trying to find somebody since Nick Collins. So you would think that maybe they would have had an opportunity to get there, just do something different. If Micah Hyde, if they would have had the foresight to go, hey, maybe you're not a corner. Maybe you're a safety.
No.
Because because he's just always had a knack for the ball and creating those turnovers and being in the right place at the right time.
He has. And again, we're outside. We're fans.
Yeah.
We evaluate it, but we're fans. We're not on the inside. So imagine the way we feel, but being somebody who's been with the franchise for so long and has to see that, hey, this guy is talented, but see so much talent in Corey Linsley walk away. See Micah Hyde walk away, Casey Hayward. I mean, you just see all these guys who go on to become solid contributors other places. Heck, I'll take J.C. Treader as well. I mean, you have all these guys that end up going other places and they flourish, where that you drafted them, you evaluated them, but you were too cheap to keep them.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun watching back on this game, and it just kind of reminds you that even Aaron Rodgers had his struggles.
Oh, yeah, that was the great reminder, Gabe.
Even Aaron Rodgers had his struggles. So I don't know if it necessarily made me feel great about Jordan Love coming forward, just because, and not to say, like, the one thing I know, I don't know if Jordan's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be bad. I don't know if he's going to be somewhere in between. The one thing I do know is he's going to have his struggles, because everyone does.
And so, again, a great reminder is we need to have grace for a lot of this roster this year, and the talent that we have is, like you just said, Jordan Love is going to struggle. He's going to have bumps in the roads because Hall of Fame quarterbacks have bumps in the road. So a guy like Jordan Love's going to have that bump. But then also when you have these young receivers, we talked about Devontae. We talked about how people ridicule Devontae. You look at his first season and his first 2 seasons, they were good. They were okay. And you look at Romeo Doubs' first season, it was equivalent to Adams' first season. He's not Devontae Adams, but he's going to be a guy we got to give some time. Christian Watson, statistically, I mean, numbers-wise, had a better season than Adams had in his first and second season in his rookie season. So it's like, we got to give these guys some time to develop and not look at this season as if things aren't going well, we get upset. We have to remember it's all part of a larger plan of working their ways to a certain way where they're going to be successful down the road.
It's such a young team. It's such a young team.
And so we have to know that. Aaron Rodgers struggled when he did not have great weapons who could not separate and get open. And we're going to have that same type of issue at certain points this season as well. And you just have to be patient.
Again, one of those guys was a guy who's currently on a Hall of Fame track in Devontae Adams. Like Devontae, it takes time to learn how to do the things that Devontae was able to do eventually in his career. So I think that's a great point of having that patience with the Packers this season. What was your overall takeaway? What's the last thought you want to get out there about Week 13, 2015, and the Green Bay Packers.
Man, oh man, the Green Bay. I'll say it. My Green Bay Packers have taken me on quite a ride. Honestly, rewatching that just gave me even more enjoyment about what I've had the opportunity to watch, because a lot of times when you're a fan of sports teams, you don't get those high moments like that. Mm-hmm. And as a Packers fan, we have so many high moments like that. It's just a blessing to be able to enjoy and spend so much time covering, watching, enjoying something, and be able to have these high moments and not have as many low moments. So it makes the lows a little bit, not as hard to have to take.
At the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned that, so I'll bring it back here. So I have so much fond memories of this game, not just because of that ending. I ended up going out, like, rallying teammates at whatever time, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday night. We ended up closing down Duke's.
All right,
like
now.
There were
now
four of
us. Duke's.
Yeah,
right.
we ended up at Duke's. We were playing Papa Shot. We had one teammate here at GKB who was hustling people at Papa Shot. It ended up being a wild night that I'll never forget, and it all started because Aaron Rodgers wound up and threw the ball from the 35-yard line. It landed 65 yards in the air to Richard Rodgers in the end zone.
I'm sure I screamed out and ran around after that.
Kyle, appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me today.
Again, Kyle Wallace, check him out, 1017 The Truth, or you can catch him with Craig Karmason, Sunday Karma, Sunday mornings on ESPN Wisconsin. We'll be back again next week with another edition of RePackables, all part of Pack Summer right here on 94.5 ESPN and 100.5 ESPN. Sitting here talking with Truman McGee of Funky Fresh Spring Rolls. All right, so how did Funky Fresh get started?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, almost to the day, I was a laid-off construction worker, had to move back to my parents' house and restart my life. I was almost 30, going bald, overweight, all the things that men are afraid of. And I say, no, I need to do something with my life. So I started literally making healthier meals out of my parents' kitchen. From there, like, my father was a Vietnam vet, like, man's man. He loved these sweet potato and black bean spring rolls. And I thought, like, my dad loved it, anybody loved it. So we started getting to farmers markets, festivals. We opened our first location in the Sherman Phoenix in 2018. And kind of the rest is history. We kind of just grew from there.
Just kind of continuing to grow and grow and grow. So where do you have places now? What are we talking about? What's the next step for Funky Fresh?
So from the Sherman Phoenix, in COVID happened, we had to figure out how to readjust and pivot, and we started to sell our spring rolls frozen directly to customers. And then we got into couple local grocery stores, and then in 2022 we partnered with Palermo's, and they've been helping us expand our product. And now we are found in over 150 grocery stores in Wisconsin and Illinois.
How many different flavors do you have?
We got 4 flavors. We got our buffalo chicken and kale. I say kale, yeah. Chicken, broccoli, and mushroom, chicken club. And we got a sweet potato black bean, which is our #1 seller.
So is the sweet potato and black bean, is that your favorite because of the tie with your family?
It has to be. It's the OG roll. You know, my son says I'm shaped like a sweet potato. So you know what? That's fine. And that's going to be my OG flavor. That, for me, it has the most sentimental value because it's the firstborn of the company.
So what are your next steps? What are you looking to do with Funky Fresh now?
So now what we've done is 150 store tests. We've got a lot of feedback from our customers and being able to improve our product. And now we're looking at expansion. So our big goal for 2024 is to be able to expand nationwide, get our product out, get the best version of our product out, and get it out across the country.
All right, hit us with those 4 flavors once again.
All right, we got our buffalo chicken and kale.
Buffalo chicken and kale.
Chicken club. Chicken broccoli and mushroom.
Chicken broccoli and mushroom.
And the sweet potato black bean.
Sweet potato black bean. You can find them all around the Milwaukee area, different grocery stores all over the place.
Woodman, Syndics, Outposts, festivals. You go to funkyfreshspringrolls.com to check out a full list of where all our stores are.
All right. Well, Truman, thank you so much for the time, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, and thank you to Funky Fresh for being part of RePackables right here on ESPN